The arrival of the Galactic Council's emergency summit had been called in haste. Representatives from 47 star systems crowded into the orbital station above Zentara Prime, their voices echoing through translation matrices in a cacophony of concern. For 3 cycles, an unknown vessel had been approaching Council space, ignoring all hails, deflecting all scans, and moving with a deliberate slowness that suggested either supreme confidence or complete ignorance of galactic protocol. Ambassador Terran of the Vasil Concordat stood before the assembled delegates, his 4 eyes scanning the crowd with barely concealed anxiety. The holographic display behind him showed a blurred, distorted image of the approaching vessel, flickering with static interference that shouldn't have been possible with their technology. "We have tried everything," Terran announced, his translator, converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. "Every frequency, every diplomatic code, every first contact protocol developed over 10,000 years of spacefaring civilization. This vessel does not respond. It does not deviate. It simply comes." A Krillian War Master slammed 3 of her appendages on her console. "Then we must assume hostile intent. Deploy the defense fleet." "We already have," Admiral Kess of the Zentoran Defense Force replied, his scales darkening with stress. 12 battlecruisers, 40 frigates, and 200 support craft surround the approach vector. They report the same phenomenon. Our sensors cannot penetrate whatever field surrounds this ship. Visual confirmation suggests it is massive, but exact dimensions remain unknown. The chamber erupted in agitated discussion. In the 10 millennia, since the Council's founding, no species had ever possessed technology that could blind their sensors so completely. The implications were terrifying. If this unknown ship could nullify their most advanced scanning technology, what else could it do? "It will arrive within the hour," Terran continued, raising his voice above the din. "We must decide our course of action before then." The holographic display suddenly flickered and changed. The blurred image sharpened for just a moment, revealing a glimpse of the vessel's true scale. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The ship was enormous, dwarfing even the legendary Vaxel. Dreadnoughts that had ended the sector wars 3,000 years ago. Then the image distorted again, but now a new element appeared. Text, rendered in perfect galactic standard, scrolled across the display. "Attention Galactic Council. This is the UHSV Prometheus of the Terran Stellar Navy. We come in peace, requesting permission to establish first contact protocols. We apologize for our delayed response. Your communications were operating on frequencies we initially categorized as background radiation. We have now adjusted our systems accordingly." Silence fell over the chamber like a physical weight. Terran felt his primary heart skip a beat. Terran? No such species existed in any Council database? And if they were just now detecting Council transmissions, what did that say about the gulf in their respective technologies? "And they called it a ship designation," a junior analyst whispered from the back of the chamber. "SV, United Human Stellar Vessel. They have a naming convention for their spacecraft. They have a navy." Admiral Kess stood slowly, his combat experience screaming warnings that his diplomatic training tried to suppress. "If their sensors are advanced enough that our communication frequencies register as mere background radiation, then what we interpret as sensor jamming might simply be passive emissions from their technology. They might not even be trying to blind us." The thought hung in the air like a blade. A species so advanced that their standard operations rendered Council technology useless. A species that had approached with such confidence that they hadn't even noticed weeks of frantic hailing attempts. A species that casually commanded a vessel larger than anything the combined Council had ever constructed. "Respond to them," Terran ordered, his voice steadier than he felt. "Grant permission to approach. Activate all recording systems. First contact goes poorly. We need every other species in the galaxy to know what happened here." The response was sent. Minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Then, the holographic display cleared completely. For the first time, the gathered delegates saw the human vessel without distortion. It was beautiful in the way a predator was beautiful, sleek and deadly despite its immense size. The hull was a deep charcoal gray that seemed to absorb light, marked with angular designs that suggested both aesthetic consideration and functional purpose. Along its flanks, massive structures that could only be weapon emplacements sat dormant, but visible, their barrels larger than entire council frigates. The ship's bow was emblazoned with text in what must have been the human language. Alongside the translation, Prometheus. Below it, a symbol showed a burning torch held aloft, rendered in brilliant gold against the dark hull. Prometheus, a Kellen. Historian murmured from her station, accessing her species' mythological databases. The name references an ancient earth deity who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity. A rebel, a benefactor, K-teacher of forbidden knowledge, poetic Admiral Cass observed grimly. And concerning. The ship slowed as it entered visual range of the defense fleet. It made no aggressive moves, powered no weapons, raised no shields, or if it did, they couldn't detect them. It simply existed in space like a monument to technological superiority, waiting with infinite patience for the Council's next move. On board the station, every sensor suddenly came alive with data as the human ship apparently lowered whatever had been blocking their scans. The information flooded in so rapidly that analysis systems struggled to process it all. When the preliminary reports appeared, Terran felt his blood run cold. The ship's power output alone exceeded the total energy generation of most Council member homeworlds. Its weapons systems, while inactive, showed energy potential that could crack planets. Its defensive capabilities included materials and field, technologies that existed only in theoretical physics papers. And this was just one ship. Terran looked at his fellow delegates and saw his own fear reflected in their various physiognomies. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk, the Revelation Captain Alina Reeves, stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the alien fleet through the viewport. 254 vessels, arranged in what their tactical computer had identified as a defensive perimeter. Primitive by human standards, but the intent was clear. The Galactic Council was afraid. Tactical status report, she said calmly. Commander James Park glanced up from his console. All weapons remain offline as ordered, Captain. Defensive screens are at passive levels. We're receiving approximately 3,000 scanning attempts per second from the alien fleet. Our systems are automatically feeding them basic information hull composition, general power signatures, nothing classified. Communications. Lieutenant Sarah Chen smiled slightly. They're talking about us on every channel, Captain. Your encryption is, well, it's adorable, honestly. The translation matrix is working perfectly. They're terrified, confused, and desperately trying to understand where we came from. Alina nodded slowly. Humanity had known this moment would come eventually. 200 years of faster-than-light travel, 200 years of exploring an apparently empty galaxy. Building colonies, advancing technology in isolation. They'd found ruins, evidence of ancient civilizations, but no living species. Until 3 months ago, when long-range scouts had detected the Council's communication networks, the decision to reveal themselves had been debated at the highest levels. Earth's government, the Colonial Assembly, the Stellar Navy Commando had weighed in. The consensus was clear. Approach openly, honestly, but from a position of undeniable strength. Show them humanity's best, not hide behind weakness and hope for mercy. Hence the Prometheus. The Titan-class warship represented humanity's peak engineering. Achievement, a vessel designed not for conquest, but as a statement. We are here, we are powerful. We come in peace, but we are not helpless. Incoming transmission from the station, Chen reported. Audio and visual. They're requesting a formal first contact meeting aboard their facility, except Elena said. But send them our requirements first. Full diplomatic immunity for our delegation, unrestricted communication with the Prometheus, and guaranteed safety. Also inform them that we'll be bringing our own security detail. She turned to her executive officer. Commander Park, you have the bridge. I'll be taking Lieutenant Chen as translator and Master Sergeant Torres with his squad for security. If anything goes wrong, you are not to engage unless they fire first. If they fire first, you are to defend. This ship and crew with extreme prejudice then jumped to Rally Point Omega and informed command. Understood, Captain? Park's expression was grim. They both knew what was at stake. If this first contact failed, if it turned violent, the repercussions would echo across the galaxy for centuries. 30 minutes later, Alina materialized on the transport pad of the Council Station's docking bay, flanked by Chen and 12 fully armored Marines. The armor was ceremonial in theory, polished black composite with gold trim, but each suit contained enough technology to make the wearer a one-person army. The Marines carried no visible weapons, but Alina knew each suit had integrated defensive and offensive systems that could activate in milliseconds. The receiving party of aliens stood frozen, their various sensory organs fixed on the human delegation. Alina took a moment to study them as well. A tall being with 4 eyes and blue-gray skin stood at the front, wearing what appeared to be formal robes. Behind him, a dozen other species waited, representing the spectrum of galactic biodiversity. "I am Captain Alina Reeves of the United Human Stellar Navy," she said clearly. Knowing Chen's translation device would convert her words, "I speak on behalf of humanity and our government. The Terran unity. We come seeking peaceful relations and mutual understanding." The 4-eyed alien stepped forward cautiously. "I am Ambassador Terran of the Vaxel Concordat, current chair of the Galactic Council. We welcome you, though we confess great confusion and concern. Your vessel, your technology. You are unknown to us, yet you possess capabilities that surpass our understanding." Alina allowed herself a slight smile. "That is why we're here, Ambassador. To introduce ourselves, to share knowledge, and to take our place in the galactic community." "Your place?" A reptilian being stepped forward, scales darkening with what Alina's briefing materials suggested was aggression. "You arrive in a warship that could destroy entire fleets, blind our sensors, and speak as if you're equals to civilizations that have existed for millennia." "Admiral Kess, please," Theron interjected, but Alina raised a hand. "The Admiral raises a fair point," she said evenly. "Let me address it directly. Humanity has been spacefaring for 2 centuries. In that time, we've established colonies across 43 star systems. We've developed our technology in isolation, following our own path. We didn't know you existed until recently." 2 centuries? A small being with multiple tentacles spoke up, its voice trembling through the translator. "Impossible. We've been monitoring this region of space for 10,000 years. We would have detected you, would you?" Chen spoke up for the first time, her voice gentle but pointed. "Your communication networks operate on frequencies we initially mistook for cosmic background noise. Your sensor technology, while sophisticated, relies on principles we moved beyond 50 years ago. No offense intended, but you weren't looking for us because you didn't have the tools to see us." The implications settled over the gathered aliens like a heavy shroud. Alina watched their reactions carefully. Fear, yes, but also dawning comprehension. They were beginning to understand the vast gulf between human technology and their own. "We don't want conflict," Alina continued. "We don't want to conquer or dominate. We want what any emerging species wants: trade, knowledge, friendship, and a voice in our shared future. But make no mistake, Ambassador Theron, we come to the table as equals, not supplicants. The Prometheus is one of 12 Titan-class vessels in our fleet. We have 200 lesser warships, 500 colony worlds under development, and a population of 40 billion spread across our territory." 40 billion, Theron whispered, his translator barely catching the words. "How many vessels in total?" Alina met his eyes steadily. "Including civilian craft. Approximately 45,000. The number hung in the air like thunder. The Council's entire combined fleet numbered perhaps 3,000 military vessels. This one species, unknown and emerging, commanded a force that dwarfed their entire civilization's naval capacity." "We've been alone," Alina said softly, her voice carrying to every being in the bay. "For 200 years, we've explored an empty galaxy, wondering if we were truly the only ones left. We've found ruins of ancient civilizations, evidence that once this galaxy teemed with life. We've wondered what happened to them, if we would face the same fate. Then we found you, and we felt hope. Hope that we're not alone. Hope that together we might build something greater than any one species could achieve. She stepped forward, extending her hand toward Terran in the human gesture of greeting. We're offering partnership, Ambassador. We're offering our technology, our resources, our friendship. But we're also making clear that we won't be subjugated or dismissed. We're here now, and we're here to stay. The question is whether we move forward as allies or remain as uncertain neighbors. Terran looked at the extended hand, at the captain who waited with infinite patience, at the armored marines who stood like statues of human military might. He thought of the Prometheus, waiting in space like a sleeping giant. He thought of the 45,000 ships, the 40 billion humans, the technology that made the Council look primitive by comparison. He reached out and clasped Elena's hand. Then let us be allies, Captain Reeves. Let us write a new chapter in galactic history together. Asterisk, the New Order. The negotiations lasted for 3 standard cycles. And with each passing hour, the Galactic Council's understanding of humanity deepened, as did their sense of wonder and unease. Captain Reeves had been joined by Ambassador Marcus Webb, Earth's chief diplomat, along with a team of scientists, engineers, and cultural specialists. Each presentation, each casual demonstration of human capability, further reinforced the staggering reality the Council faced. On the second day, a Krillian scientist had challenged humanity's claims about their computational technology. Lieutenant Chen had smiled politely and produced a device no larger than her palma, standard personal data assistant issued to every human civilian. When interfaced with the Council's central computer network, it had processed more calculations in 10 seconds than their systems could handle in a year. The Krillian scientist had requested asylum to study, with human researchers by the end of the hour. Now, as the final session convened in the Council's Grand Chamber, Ambassador Terran felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Every decision made in this room would ripple across the galaxy for generations. Around him, his fellow delegates sat in contemplative silence, waiting for Ambassador Webb to deliver humanity's formal proposal. Marcus Webb was a distinguished man in his 60s, his gray hair and weathered face conveying wisdom earned through decades of diplomatic service. He stood before the Council with the same unshakable confidence that Captain Reeves had displayed, and Terran was beginning to understand this was simply how humans carried themselves, not with arrogance, but with the quiet certainty of a species that had faced the darkness of an empty galaxy and emerged stronger for it. Honored delegates, Webb began, his voice resonating through the chamber. These past 3 days have been enlightening for all of us. We've shared our histories, our cultures, our hopes and fears. We've begun to build the foundation of understanding. Now it's time to discuss the practical realities of our shared future. A holographic display materialized above the central platform, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Human territory glowed in blue, concentrated in a region the Council had always considered uninteresting, low stellar density. A few habitable worlds by their standards, far from established trade routes. Council's space appeared in green, sprawling network that had seemed so vast until humanity's borders were added for comparison. We propose a formal alliance, Webb continued. Not a merger, not annexation, but a partnership between sovereign powers. Humanity will maintain its territorial integrity and political independence. The Council will do the same. But together, we'll establish protocols for trade, cultural exchange, mutual defense, and scientific cooperation. Mutual defense? Admiral Kess leaned forward, his earlier hostility tempered by grudging respect. Forgive my bluntness, Ambassador, but what could we possibly offer humanity in terms of defense? Your single warship outclasses our entire fleet. Webb's expression softened. Admiral, you're thinking in purely military terms? Yes, our weapons technology is more advanced. But you have something we desperately need: experience. You've navigated galactic politics for 10 millennia. You've managed conflicts between dozens of species, each with their own cultures, needs, and perspectives. You've built institutions that have maintained peace across vast distances for longer than human civilization has existed. He gestured to the map. We've been expanding rapidly, establishing colonies, pushing outward with the enthusiasm of youth. But we're alone in that endeavor. We have no neighbors to trade with, no allies to consult, no frameworks for addressing disputes beyond our own species. We've been operating in a vacuum, making it up as we go. You can offer us wisdom, perspective, and integration into a galactic community. A Kellan counselor spoke up, her melodic voice tinged with curiosity. And what do you offer us beyond your obvious military superiority? Everything, Webb said simply.
Our
Medical technology has eliminated 98% of known diseases and extended human lifespan to an average of 200 years. Our environmental restoration techniques have repaired ecosystems on 27 worlds. Our artificial intelligence and quantum computing systems can solve problems in seconds. That would take centuries using conventional methods. Our faster-than-light drives are more efficient, faster, and safer than anything in Council space. He paused, letting that sink in. We're offering full technology transfer on a graduated basis. Not all at once, that would be disruptive and potentially dangerous. But over the next 50 years, we'll share our advances freely with all Council members. No strings attached, no demands for subservience. We do this because we believe that raising all species elevates everyone. Why? Terran asked, voicing the question that had haunted him since the Prometheus arrived. Why reveal yourselves with such overwhelming force, then offer such generous terms? You could have hidden your true capabilities, infiltrated our society, conquered us through subterfuge, or direct assault. Why approach as you did? Captain Reeves, who had been standing quietly beside Webb, stepped forward. Because we're human, Ambassador. Because our history is filled with cautionary tales about deception and subjugation. We've fought wars among ourselves, made terrible mistakes, learned painful lessons. We decided centuries ago that when we finally met other intelligent life, we would be honest about who and what we are. She activated another holographic display, this one showing images from Earth's history wars. Destruction, but also rebuilding, cooperation, triumph. We came in the Prometheus not to threaten you, but to ensure you took us seriously. We wanted our first impression to be one of strength tempered with peaceful intent. We wanted you to see us as partners, not victims waiting to be exploited or conquerors you needed to resist. The name Prometheus itself was chosen deliberately, Webb added. In human mythology, Prometheus gave fire to humanity, elevating us to a new level of capability. We see ourselves in that role, now not as gods bestowing gifts on lesser beings, but as the one who arrived at the party with something valuable to share. We're offering fire to the galaxy, the spark of new technology, new ideas, new possibilities. The chamber fell silent as the delegates absorbed this. It was Terran who finally spoke, rising from his seat with a formal gesture of respect. Ambassador Webb, Captain Reeves. I believe I speak for many here when I say that your arrival has fundamentally changed our understanding of what's possible. 3 days ago, we were the pinnacle of galactic civilization, comfortable in our assumptions and our place. Today, we're students again, humbled but excited by what we might learn. He looked around at his fellow counselors. I move that we accept humanity's proposal for alliance, that we recognize the Terran unity as a sovereign power equal in standing to any council member, that we establish the frameworks Ambassador Webb has outlined for cooperation and integration, and that we begin, immediately, the process of welcoming humanity into the galactic community, not as newcomers to be tested, but as partners whose strength and wisdom we're grateful to have found. One by one, the delegates signaled their agreement. Even Admiral Kess, after a long moment of consideration, raised his hand in assent. The vote was unanimous. Webb smiled warmly. Let's begin. We have so much to learn from each other. Over the following months, the galaxy transformed. Human technology began flowing to Council worlds. Carefully introduced to avoid cultural shock, but revolutionary in its impact. Diseases that had plagued species for millennia vanished. Failing ecosystems recovered. Aging infrastructure was rebuilt with materials that would last for centuries. In return, humanity gained access to the Council's vast cultural and historical archives. Human students studied at alien universities, Human merchants established trade routes that connected previously isolated colonies. Human diplomats learned the subtle art of multi-species negotiation that the Council had perfected over 10,000 years. The Prometheus remained in orbit above Zintara Prime, a permanent reminder of humanity's power, but also its commitment to peace. Captain Reeves became a regular sight at Council functions. Her presence both reassuring and inspiring to species who had thought they'd reached the limits of what was possible. On Earth, the news of first contact sparked celebrations that lasted for weeks. Humanity was no longer alone. The galaxy was full of life, rich with diversity and potential. Humanity, through careful preparation and honest self-presentation, had secured its place not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals. Ambassador. Terran stood in his office one evening, looking out at the Prometheus through the viewport. The massive warship hung in space like a second moon, its running lights creating constellations against the darkness. He thought about the fear he'd felt when it first appeared, sensors overloading, weapons beyond comprehension, power beyond measure. Now he felt only gratitude. Humanity could have been conquerors. Instead, they'd chosen to be teachers, partners, friends. They'd arrived with overwhelming force and used it to open doors rather than break them down. His communication console chimed. A message from Captain Reeves, inviting him to dinner aboard the Prometheus. He smiled and accepted. The galaxy was entering a new age, and he was privileged to witness its birth. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy was better for it. The age of isolation was over. The age of unity had begun. Above every council world, human ships now patrolled, not as occupiers, but as guardians of a shared future that burned brighter than any star. The fire Prometheus brought had been accepted, and its warmth would light the galaxy for generations to come.